again, and welcome to the Author Roundup. This special segment of the Book Connection show showcases emerging indie authors who join us for a discussion of their newly published books. Join us for a conversation with our next guest author. Welcome to Author Roundup. My name is Emma, and I will be your host for today's episode. Today with me, I have a very special guest, a Balboa Press author by the name of Marcie Shrewsbury Lopez. She is an author and artist, and she wrote a heartwarming memoir of a captivating love story between herself and her husband, Adrian. It is inspiring and will definitely resonate with many readers. Hi, Marcie. How are you today?
Doing well, thank you. Good to see you, and thank you for
Good.
inviting me here.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So you wrote a story about you and your late husband, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And what inspired you to write this, captivating love story between you two?
So it mostly began, the seed was dropped into me by nurses who cared for him during the end of his life. He was on dialysis and he never complained, never moaned. Every time he went for treatment, he would ask the nurses how they are, how are their families? And they would say to me, Mrs. Lopez, you have to write a story about him. And the seed was planted. And then he had asked me to be one of the speakers at his funeral. That was years before he began to not be so well. And I never really thought about it until it was obvious he wasn't going to be here for a couple more years. And I just started taking notes for what I would say during the service. And as I was doing that, I realized how special was our relationship. I couldn't articulate that then. I was just trying to remember everything that people would want to hear. So then after he passed, I just kept making notes. And I thought, well, somebody professional will write this. That person will appear. I'll find somebody. And knew some people who suggested people, and they gave me some samples, but they didn't know my husband. So then finally I realized I will try. And I didn't think of myself as a writer because I'm a painter with an MFA in art and I sculpt. And my husband was a publisher, and whatever you asked him, he would write it in a way that Faulkner would write it, with just brevity, concise. So I knew I wasn't on that level. And his son was a well-known writer who won the National Book Award, Barry Lopez. And I was intimidated basically by both of them. So it was a long time to get over that feeling of inadequacy. But the story, I kept hearing the story. I was compelled to keep at it in journals. It's a long journey to overcome your anxiety or fear that you aren't really an artist or a writer.
Yeah.
So that's how it happened.
Okay. And in your book description, you say the age difference between Adrian and Marcie, or you and your husband, is a strong appeal and adds to a layer of intrigue. What drew you to explore this romance at its core?
Well, why were we attracted? Is that what you're basically
Yeah,
asking? Yeah. When we were married, it never occurred to us that there was this 46-year difference because it was so comfortable and natural. And I think that's when it's the real thing.
Right.
You're not putting on, you're not trying to impress. You become your authentic self. And right away that happened. If you had said, are you in love right away? I would have said, no, this man is so much older. And I define and describe that in my memoir. It took a while to realize it was love, but I just felt very comfortable with him, and he did with me, and we had fun.
Yeah.
When
It
we
was
first
easy.
met.
Yeah.
First date was a 4th of July cookout. We rode bikes to, and he hadn't been on a bike in a long time. And it was there that the world seemed to become colorful. The world was now in color rather than black and white. That's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah. And so love and art are beautifully intertwined in this story. What role did art play in your relationship?
Oh, it was huge because I had always inconsistently been an artist. Also with that, I didn't realize the talent that I recognize now.
Mm,
People are talented in my family, but it was not consistent.
mm.
So when Adrian and I became married, he always encouraged me.
Oh,
And yeah,
that's so.
unlike some relationships where the spouse resents the other one's talent, my husband was all in for me. And he would say to me, do you know who you would be if you would just paint 4 hours a day, even 3 hours a day? And he would
Oh.
challenge me. And he was a busy magazine publisher. In his lifetime, he published many magazines and he was constantly on the go. I called him Go-Go Lopez. And I tried go out to lunch with the ladies thing, and that wasn't doing it. And I started taking art classes in New York City. What better place? And I went to almost every art school in New York City except Cooper Union and took life drawing, landscape. Every time I came home with something, my husband would applaud me.
Oh, so sweet.
So it was true love. When you become your best self, then it's real love. And he became his better self. Not that we were bad people before, but we were just we hadn't yet reached our divine destiny. Um, and that's what I think real love does for you. So I began to study all over New York. And then in one of the art classes, a graduate school, one of the young women who painted really well, we did landscapes in Central Park and came back to the room to be critiqued by the art teacher. And one woman was very good. And I heard that she'd gone to a graduate school in New York, and I looked into that and eventually graduated from there.
Oh, nice. Wow.
So
That's
there's a parallel journey,
hmm
an interconnecting journey with true love and developing for me being an artist.
yeah. And yeah, that support always goes such a long way too. Just having someone be your biggest cheerleader is all you want in life, right?
Oh, for sure. He was
Yeah,
my advocate. Yep.
that's great.
Yeah, it
Um,
was.
and so, but in your book, you do mention overcoming challenges. Without giving too much away, what kind of obstacles did you both face, and how did you go grow through those?
The primary was resistance from both families. My mother
Mhm.
was originally very happy. I think she always wanted the best for me. So did my father, but Adrian was more their age, and they had all played bridge together and gone out as couples. So my father was not immediately in favor of this.
Yeah.
And it took time because Adrian was such a kind person. Everybody responded to him. And then Adrian's sons were at first, I mean, they came to the wedding, but everybody has histories that maybe they haven't resolved. And it took me a long time to realize and not take it personally. And then the age difference, very few people in New York City, because it's a sophisticated place, looked at us twice. But sometimes, like down at the Jersey Shore where Adrian, we had a second home. My parents were uh, some people didn't, they looked at us askance, but we thought it was fun. I'll just give you a quick example of how we thought it was fun. We went to a publishing convention out in California because Adrian, uh, that's what was going on then. There were publishing conventions on the East Coast, the West Coast, distributors, advertisers. So we had checked in the basement of a hotel and we were on our way to a room, and check in for the publishing convention is bags and bags of goodies and advertisements and schedules of events, speakers and all that. And at the far end of the hall, these people, men, recognized my husband. Oh, hi, Adrian, Adrian. So they came up to us. Oh, Adrian, it's so good to see you. We have your magazines distributed here, there, and checkout counters. And oh, it's so nice that you brought your granddaughter. That was
Oh boy. Oh gosh.
we loved it. We got a kick out of it. He said,
Yeah.
"Oh no, this is going. She's going to be my new wife." I mean,
Ah,
he rolled with everything, and he taught
yeah.
me to do that. So,
Yeah.
but that was fun, and then the challenges as he got older. We all think we're going to live forever,
Mhm.
and I assumed a lot of responsibilities, and that's a challenge to run a household and start to take care of him and line up proper care for him and continue with my art. So we
Mhm.
had some good challenges. And then
Yeah.
his company didn't do so well towards the end. He couldn't let go of it. So
Oh,
that
yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
But again, with true love, you can face anything. He never complained. It was always a fun challenge every day, a
Yeah,
fun
he seems great.
adventure. A fun, yeah, he was fun.
Yeah.
And that gave me he gave me the strength to meet all those challenges and the challenges when I became a widow.
Hmm.
So he gave me that foundation of strength. And my
Yeah.
family did too when I was growing up. But
Yeah. And so how did you guys meet? Was it like a love at first sight thing, or you mentioned that your parents played bridge together, or
well, my
how did
parents played bridge with him and his previous wife, Mary.
Okay.
And my mother was her bridge partner. Talk about a love of life soap opera. And when she died, and I knew one of Adrian's sons, just the beach down in Jersey, kids as teenagers. I didn't know him real well. But when she died, my mother invited me to go to the funeral and the repast at Adrian's house. And I don't know, it was my rebellious teenager hippie era, whatever it was. I don't really know the answer, but oh, I don't want to go with my mother to be with her friends oh no, I would have met Adrian 10 years earlier. But the way we did meet was I had been a medical artist in New York City. I had been a pre-med student at NYU, and then one of the doctors I met said, "Why don't you become a medical artist?" And I went into the operating room with surgeons and drew and photographed their procedures, and then they published them in AMN journals or used them for teaching aids. All of a sudden, my work stopped coming in. I couldn't pay my rent. And my
Mhm.
mother called me one day. I had a nice little apartment in the city. And she said, "I had a dream about you that you're not doing well." And I burst into tears. I said, "No, Mom, I'm going to be evicted. I don't know, I haven't paid in 3 months." In
Mhm.
24, 48 hours, she had a U-Haul with her sister, my aunt, and some young man my father knew, and took me to the Jersey Shore to live in the house with them. Very nice house, my own room. But I thought I had died. I thought my life was over. I'm out of my New York City life. All the so-called friends were not calling me. I thought it was the end of my life. And I prayed a lot. I just talked to God. I got a job as a waitress at a local fish market place, and my brother loaned me one of his cars, a beat up old Volkswagen. You could see the road go by. It had body rot. And I just prayed a lot. I didn't know what was, but I don't know, was being peaceful in a difficult time. And I woke up one morning with a dream on my forehead. It said, "Go." I mean, that's what it felt like. "Go see Adrian Lopez." And I knew that Adrian had a brownstone in New York City. And I thought, the dream is telling me to go rent an apartment from him. Because my mother had said, I just kind of knew the vague story.
Mhm.
So I knocked on his door Mother's Day, and he said, "Who is it?" I said, "It's Marcie Shrewsbury, Mr. Lope." "Oh, come in, Marcie, come on in, have coffee." And we talked, and I said, "Do you have an apartment for rent, Mr. Lopez?" "Oh, I do." He didn't. One of his tenants, their lease was just up, and they had a baby. And I guess he knew right away. I mean, he was an older, distinguished gentleman, cosmopolitan. He had worked on his issues. I had no idea what was going on. And he said, "Oh, call me in my office." And I was working at Revlon 3 times a week in New York City as an artist in the bullpen, designing ads. And all I had was a little desk and some art utensils. And I had a phone, and I would call him at his office, and they would say, "Oh, Mr. Lopez is busy." And I thought, this is the last phone call. And he invited me to see the apartment. And of course it was lovely. And of course I couldn't afford it. But there was something about being with him, and I just said, "I'll take it." In those days, I mean, it was $1,200, but now it's like close to $6,000 for that same apartment. Yeah, ridiculous. But to me, that was huge money. I was a waitress. I'd count my nickels and dimes on my mother's rug in the living room at night. And he called me to come back into the city, and I thought, oh, it's a gentleman who's a friend of my parents. He said, I want to show you. I don't know what that, anyway. Oh, I want to have lunch with you. And I thought, oh, very nice, real gentleman. Then he asked me to go to dinner with his nephew who lived in his house. Like, it was super gentleman. And then I think I asked the nephew to go to the 4th of July cookout with me, not knowing I was attracted to Adrian, not knowing I didn't want the nephew to come. And the phone
Mm.
kept ringing. I was waiting for him on a bike out on I was sitting on the sidewalk waiting for him. I went inside and I called and Adrian answered the phone. I said, Mr. Lopez, your nephew's supposed to be here. And he said the magic words that changed my whole life. He said, well, would you like me to come, Marcie?
Oh my God.
Exactly. That's how I felt. I couldn't understand it because it was actually going to the core of that I really was attracted to him. And he
Hmm.
came and we had a great time and stopped at my parents' on the way and went to my little apartment over somebody's garage. And um, he said, I have a question for you. And I thought, oh, here we go. Anyway, he said, I'm too old for you, Marcie, or something like that. And I said, I know, Mr. Lopez, but may I kiss you?
Oh.
And it was just pure, gentle intimacy. Like
Hmm.
it just, who knew? We didn't even know. And it happened. And then we go bike to his place, about a mile up along the beach, go across the street and watch the 4th of July fireworks in the town next to us. And that was probably my real liberation,
Oh,
those
wow. That's
fireworks.
beautiful. That's amazing. And
Yes,
so how long did you guys date until you got, because
well,
you
we
got
had
married,
three
right?
dates. Oh, so then when he took me home that night, I don't know where the bikes were. I don't know what happened. I guess I left the bike at his house and it was getting late. He said, I'll take you back to your apartment. And when he dropped me off, it's up the stairs over a garage, one of my mother's friends. And he said, I'll be back for you. Straight in the eye. I thought, oh, sure, maybe 3 weeks. I'll hear from this man. It doesn't matter. I had a fun time. Who cares? I think it was 2 mornings later at 7 a.m. There's a knock on my door. I looked. It was him. I couldn't even talk. He said, get your things. You're coming with me.
Oh,
Yeah, like a
oh,
medieval abduction. And
yeah, like on a
his eldest
rom-com.
son was in the car. I guess they'd had the weekend together and go back to his apartment in New York. I didn't know what was happening. And I called a friend of mine and told her, and I said, I don't know. I think I'm sort of with this person. She said, oh, there's a great party out in the Hamptons tonight. Why don't you, and I wasn't that kind of a person, a party person, but she's one of
Yeah.
my friends. So I said, Adrian, would you drive us out there? Lovely home on the beach in East Hampton. I mean, just exquisite, like really beautiful place. And then it was too late to drive back to the city. So we dropped her off at her boyfriend's place and we went to a little motel out there at the Shinnecock Inlet, it's called. It was it, and that and we had nothing. And we asked the little old man at the desk, do you have some toothbrushes? We had nothing. And then we went to eat at the Lobster Inn right across the street, which is no longer there. And I don't know. This is how it happened. I mean, I didn't know what was going on then. And we're sitting at the bar and just, relaxing together. And he starts telling me this list of why we don't belong apart. And I'm thinking, I don't know what this man is talking about, but okay, sure, Mr. Lopez. And we get to our table about 1 o'clock in the morning with the lobster and my beer and whatever. And then he starts giving me this list of why we belong together. Whatever it was at the bar, we belong together. We don't, it was the opposite, why we don't belong together. I just said, well, Mr. Lopez, what do you want me to do? And he said, marry me.
Oh my gosh. And when was this? What year was this?
It was just a long time ago. I don't want to tell my age because this was, well, this was 1984. a lot of people who read this story, and they weren't even born yet, but it was so regal. And he said, I hesitated. No, just like you, it took my breath away. I was in shock. I wasn't a manipulative person. I wasn't conniving for this. I was just having fun.
Yeah.
And we went back to the city 2 nights later, a night later, and he took me to his jeweler to choose the ring. And then we drove to the Jersey Shore
Oh, oh
and
my,
told my parents, and my other brother was there. It was just, that was the beginning. I mean, you asked that simple question, how did it start? That's how it started in
beautiful.
heaven. It started in heaven.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So what do you hope that this story, how do you hope this story resonates with readers? What
Well,
do
I'll just
you
give you
hope they
that.
get?
I was going to say, and then I wanted to wait to see what your next question is. An acquaintance down there, a couple of women took me out to a very nice brunch at a lovely restaurant down here on a Sunday to celebrate the book. I know them, but they aren't best friends. And the one told me she bought the book and couldn't put it down for a
Mm,
day and a half. And she said, Marcie,
that's nice.
I cried through the whole thing.
Oh.
And that meant that what I was expressing from my heart touched her heart.
Hmm.
And that's the best review. And I've heard it from a lot of people um, who have bought it, that it resonates on an emotional, spiritual level. Not that it's all sad, but that it's so beautiful.
Hmm.
That there's so much real love here. And that's what I hope to inspire in people, that to give them the hope that there is true unconditional love that is transformative in this world. A lot of people say to me, oh my gosh, Marcie, most people never experience this.
Hmm. Or
And
people settle and they don't know what they're missing. They don't know that there's so much more out there.
that's the purpose of writing this,
Yeah.
to illuminate people and give them hope, and especially those who have lost a loved one, either widow or
Mhm.
widower or a child or grandparent. You, when Social Security called me in after my husband died and said, thank you for calling us. I didn't call them, but the hospital, I guess it all gets into computers.
Oh yeah.
And they said I would receive a certain amount of my husband's Social Security. And this nice young bureaucrat said, oh, just so you know, the statistics are that widows die within a year. 90% of widows die within a year of their husband's death. And I just thought, you poor, sad, pathetic person.
Yeah.
And I
Uh,
was determined not to be a statistic. And that's what I want to share with people who grieving the loss of a loved one goes to the core. I thought I had lost a limb when my husband died, even though he was older and somewhat prepared. And I want this book, in answer to your question, to inspire people to not be destroyed by their grief, like the Social Security man was saying. And it's
yeah.
so easy for women who are destroyed by the loss of the husband because the husband did so much. So I want to give people hope that you can go on and live a life, which I'm doing now. I've taught college after my husband died, and I'm in art shows and a museum down here at the Jersey Shore, and some other
Mhm.
ones are planned. It isn't the end of your life, and you never get over it. I'm not over it, but you learn to live with it. And that's what I hope this book resonates with people, that
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
can live a positive life after losing your, and who would we be without that love? So,
Yeah. Yeah. To always think about like the fond memories you had versus, the end of his life and
well,
right.
the end prepared me for, then I went on to, because it, well, I don't know if it's because, but when he passed, I mean, yes, I was in great grief,
Right.
but because of our love, I chose to keep going and making decisions and
Yeah.
do something with my art. Not, he always said, as I said before, do something with your art. So I went on to teach
Mhm.
college. That was so rewarding. And I think that's one of the good chapters. Well, they're all good chapters, but one of the fun, inspiring chapters in the book, when I taught Essex County College up in Newark, is the base of the school, and I taught in the Caldwell branch. It gave me so much life. These were mostly professionals. One was an organ retrieval nurse. She would go all over the world to retrieve an organ for transplant. One was a lieutenant in the local state police. They had never studied art. They always heard about it. It was so magnificent to see the light come on in their eyes, and it was art history. Then I took them to Montclair Art Museum. They were like puppies at Christmas. Yeah, I took them to a very good exhibit then, a Matisse exhibit, and paintings that inspired other artists, well-known artists like Andy Warhol. Oh, they couldn't get enough of it. And I would go along and talk to them. And then when it was too much, they'd take a break from me and huddle, and then they'd come back and understand what I was talking about. That gives you life to go on and live life and give to others.
Mm-hmm.
And that has inspired me to do my own art. So that's a especially inspiring chapter for people.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. You mentioned just a little bit ago, unconditional love. You describe your 20-year
Yes,
marriage as a fine romance with unconditional love.
yes.
How did that relationship shape who you are today, and what does unconditional love mean to you?
Great question. Well, with my husband Adrian, I was so glad I could do no wrong. I mean, yes, I was spoiled, but it wasn't just that. I mean, he gave me material things. We went on beautiful trips and that sort of thing. But even if I did something that I felt wasn't right, he would just laugh it off and go, "Oh, you're so funny." Oh my God. He never said a negative thing to me,
Wow.
ever. Never criticized me. You know, and there was some dysfunction in my family with generational alcoholism, so people had shame and that sort of thing. I couldn't do anything wrong. No matter what it was. Oh, you're so good. Oh, you're so funny. Oh, you're such a good golfer. I mean, I
So sweet.
wasn't, but so that's what unconditional love is. There's no
Yeah.
condition. He saw the good in me and encouraged my talents. And for me, I gave back too. I was so appreciative of him even. I would have just been happy to know him. It was
Yeah.
so
Let alone
special.
be his wife.
And then become his wife. And I did everything I could for him, especially as he got older. One of the nurses' aides I had said, "Oh, you should put him like in an institution." I would never do that. Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, that was, she didn't work there anymore after that. But when you make that commitment, no matter who the other person is or what the other person is, you're there for him. And when his company failed, I was there for him in every way I could. Lawyers were fighting for what was left of his publishing company. He had trouble letting go when he could have sold it. So it's partly in the book. And I just thought it was outrageous that people would start carving him up and his what's left. And I called both sides of the legal teams. The team for the other publisher was buying my husband. I said, "You continue this way, you're going to kill my husband. Stop it." I could never do that without my husband's belief in me. And I called my husband's own lawyer and I said, "You have to stop this level of vicious haggling for what's left of his company.
Yeah, it's awful.
It's destroying him." So that's what unconditional love will do. You believe you can be your best self.
Hmm.
I think that's the best way to understand it because that person believes in you unconditionally.
Yeah. And everyone deserves that for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Why do you not? Yeah. It's beautiful. And and so speaking about your paintings and your art after your husband's passing, you leaned into creativity to heal. How did painting help you through that sort of grief and just that hard time that you were going through?
Well, art connects us to our essential self.
Hmm.
So it was really essential that I continued my art. I was frozen for a while with grief. I mean, I wasn't really functioning. I would sit in his chair that overlooked the ocean and sob mostly. And then when the phone would ring, I'd pull myself together and talk to someone. And I was at a standstill. And one of my art teachers, she's still alive and very well respected. She's in her late 90s, but she's a very well-known artist. She invited me to visit her in Maine. And she knew Adrian. She had met him. She came, we had lunch, dinner with her a couple of times. So I thought that was a good idea and drove up to Maine and stayed close to her. And I couldn't even draw. had a group of other women artists who would go out into the woods and draw, and they had a person posing for them in the nude, because the nude is the hardest to draw. It's not salacious. It's
Hmm.
not to be erotic. It's just because a nude in the forest by a wood pile or trees is so unusual. It incites you to become creative. Like, what am I looking at here? And how do these forms connect? I could barely draw. I was just doing stick figures. I was so sunk in grief, but it was so important to be with her and start again. And then when I came back to Jersey, I started painting again and being with a plein air group here. That's French for outside painting, painting outside. That helped me. I took baby steps, but I didn't want to be destroyed by the grief. And I knew I had talent, and he always encouraged me. And
Hmm.
so it started that way, and inch by inch, I started more seriously painting. And I
Yeah,
now have a very nice studio
that's
that I
wonderful.
prepared in the basement, a finished basement in this home. And I put
Wow.
up professional lights and a faux wood floor that's gray and bookshelves. And it's my happy place.
Hmm. That's wonderful. And so you've had an incredible art career, solo exhibitions, museum shows, and teaching in college. How do those experiences influence the way you express emotion through your work now?
Well, I don't know if you want to ask that question because I'm so open, like New York City artists, and I live in New Jersey, and people in New Jersey maybe don't have that. As an
Yeah.
artist, you open up your
Hmm.
soul and it's a great artist, Bacon, he said, art is emotion.
Hmm.
And to become an artist, you do an archaeological dig, whether it's writing or painting. It's not just decorative
Hmm.
as an artist. It's not just, well, that's a tree and a flower, and I can do that too. But
Yeah.
then to have a purpose, to have the painting say something or the writing say something, you're going
Right.
deeper and deeper. Um, there's a quote by Harper Lee, who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird. She said, most people think writing is glamorous. She said, it's not. Most of the time is heartbreak. So to
Hmm.
be an artist, you're getting in touch with your feelings and your art. You're happy, joyous, painful. And I do express that, and people in New York don't have a problem with it, but I can sometimes say things and do things, and the people down here are like, where is she coming? Well, I'm an artist, you know. So yes, it is part of me now. I don't hide it. I now can access it because of all the painting and the drawing and the sculpting and the writing. I'm
Hmm.
more in touch with it's therapy on some level to be an
Yeah,
artist.
right. Yeah.
It's a
And
conduit, yeah.
yeah. And so when did you start writing your book, and how long did it take you to complete this book?
So as I had said earlier, I just started taking notes, hoping somebody would write this. And there was the man who wrote the local obituary down here in the Asbury Park Press. He wrote a very nice one. I
Mhm.
contacted him,
Oh, wow.
gave him some history of Adrian. I mean, he wrote a beautiful 2 or 3 pages, but it had nothing. He didn't know Adrian.
Yeah.
So I guess I started thinking maybe I could do this in maybe 4 years, 3, 4 years after Adrian died. I think it was one of his employees. I started sending her some samples. I said, I think I'm writing a book about Adrian. And she liked it. And she suggested somebody in New York City. His name was Joe Franklin. He had a radio show of
Oh, wow.
many Hollywood people, and he knew everybody. And I gave it to him, and he knew Adrian. And he said, "Oh, people like that encouraged me." It, it,
Mhm.
it was just barely a seedling in the ground, but he encouraged me. Oh, Marcie he deserves a book. And he introduced me to an agent, a Hollywood person who said, "Oh yeah, it's a good story." It was people like that came into my life when I thought, I can't do this. I don't
Mhm.
know who
Yeah.
would want this. And that person said, "You have a good story. You need an editor." He said, "You have a story. It could be a movie someday, but right now you need an editor. So,
Mhm.
I just Googled. I knew enough about using the internet, my desktop. I just Googled editor, and this person popped up who had been an editor at Random House, now had her own company, and she had one of those open spaces. Tell me in a paragraph or two about your story. And she called me the next day, and
Oh,
that was the beginning of thinking seriously and being edited and being responded to by a professional editor. She even sent it. She knew she's still alive. Salinger's Salinger's agent, you know, who wrote The Catcher in the Rye. I mean, I thought she was nuts,
wow.
but we received a very nice letter from her, Phyllis. Oh, there is a story here. We don't represent memoirs, but those little kernels of hope encouraged me to keep going. And then Pat, I went as far as I could with her, and I thought, and I sent it out to agents, and I thought, I'm not really a writer. This is never going to happen. I stopped for a while and went to my art teacher was having a workshop in Maine,
Hmm.
and I went up there and know how to set up my paints outside and my easel. There's a woman who had no clue what she was doing. I mean, none. With canvas, you don't work on a white canvas, you tone it so your eye isn't fighting that white. And she didn't know how to mix paints. And I thought, and she came from Montana. And I thought, this is either a crazy person or she is somebody. And she just doesn't know how to paint. Well, it turns out she's a nationally acclaimed author of novels who was
Oh my gosh.
nominated for a National Book Award. It took me a year to tell her, through emails, well, I'm writing something. Oh, I don't have time. I teach at the Iowa Writers Workshop. I teach in Boston every summer. And finally, she looked at a couple of chapters and she said, okay, I'm in. And
Oh,
she became like an art therapist, a writing therapist. I mean, she didn't rewrite, she just asked me tough questions. Well, what do you think the reader's going to think here? They're going to throw it out the window, Marcie. That is just not honest. She's very tough on me.
oh yeah.
And that's what I needed then.
Hmm.
And that
That's
happened.
crazy that
And
you
then,
met.
yeah. And then I took it as far as I could with her and started sending it out to agents. And then I contacted one of my husband's editors and she sent me to somebody. And then I went through another move and I started teaching. And every time I thought I couldn't do it, somebody would appear to encourage me. And
Mhm.
then I moved back down here to this area and I looked at what I had written. This was about 5 years ago, 4 years ago. And I thought, no, really, this is not good. This is not good writing. I know that much. I'm not a Pulitzer Prize winner, but I know that this is not good writing with all these editors. And I just thought, I'm either going to do this or I'm not. And I got up every morning for 6 months at 4:30 in the morning, stepped
Mhm.
outside, said a prayer to my husband. I said, if you want this book published, you have to write through me. And I
Mhm.
would look at the Big Dipper, have some light breakfast, and write until maybe 11, 12 in the afternoon, 11 morning. And then I sent it again to her. Her name is Sandra, the editor. And she said, now you're writing, Marcie. Now this is writing. I just was like, because if she said, yeah, I was going to quit.
Yeah.
And
Get
she
up at
gave me,
4:30 in the morning, and if it's
oh,
not good, this is gonna
well,
painful.
you either have to dig in your heels or not, like my
Yeah.
mother would always say, when the tough gets go, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. And I just thought, I either am or I'm not going to be able to do this with or without somebody else. So
Mm-hmm.
she said, I can't help you. It does need more editing. And she gave me a list of editors that only writers know about, some obscure site. And each editor asked me to send a brief synopsis of the story. Four of them responded. The one I got along with the most on the telephone, he was the editor for Edward Albee and Gore Vidal's personal papers, and he agreed to work with me. And they are two of the greatest writers. Edward Albee wrote many, many great plays, and he challenged me to go deeper into my emotions, yeah, the content, the structure. And then I worked with him and got that to a point, and then I sent out about 30 um, in the queries to agents. Oh, good story, but not quite right for me. And I went back to Pat, who had worked at Random House, and I said, Pat, I can't go on anymore. Could you take one last look at this? And I mean, she fine-tuned every punctuation point,
Mhm.
every letter, tightened. It didn't rewrite, but a professional, super professional editor. She did that for about a month, sent
Mhm.
out some more queries, got the same answer, and she said, you're not going to quit, Marcie. You've come too far. Go to a local bookstore, and then I'll finish with this. Find a story that resonates, that's something like your story. Find out who the publisher is, find out who the agent is. So I went to a local bookstore here. I picked up a book. It looked very nice. It's about grief. And I went to the woman at the desk. I said, have you ever heard of this publisher, Hay House?
There it is.
And she said, oh, I said, oh, it's very respectable worldwide. And that's who Balboa is associated with. So I
Mhm.
called, I saw online, they don't accept without an agent. So then it said, however, we have a subsidiary named Balboa.
Mhm.
So I called and I just thought, it was a Saturday. I left a message. I don't know. I thought I'll never hear from these people. And the phone rang and I thought it was a solicitation and I hung up. It
Oops.
was somebody from Balboa and
Mhm.
said, tell me about the story. And that's why I'm here now. Balboa. The director was in and she said, anyway, I said, I'm not sure I want to do the program that you're suggesting. I just wrote a new prologue, a new first chapter, and a new something else. I forget what it was. And I said, could you give it to the director? And she said, oh, yeah, but we don't work this way. I said, my mother always told me to ask. And she got right back to me and she said he really liked it and they want to publish it just from the first chapter
Uh-huh.
and my
Awesome.
prologue. So that's how it happened. Probably
Okay.
the last 5 years, the most serious writing and
Mhm.
pursuit
A
of
lot
it.
of back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of back
Very
and forth.
cool. Yeah. And so, so what do you hope, readers get out of this, or what have readers gotten out of this? Have you had any, reactions or feedback that you've received so far from readers?
Yes, and some of them, we're calling them reviews. They're not professional reviews, but people's responses, they're on the review section of my website. People are touched by the profound love, and people who, my brother even, he was just awestruck by how Adrian and I loved each other so deeply, and I cared for him at the end, and he
Mhm.
loved the chapter about our grandparents' farm, and he was inspired by it, and he said he hopes he can do that for his grandchildren. I mean, people have responded that way. A dear friend we had dated years ago, and there was the talk in the two families we would marry, but we stay in touch. And he just said he read it in 24 hours. This is
Oh,
an
that's
old
so
boyfriend
sweet.
who's married with children and grandchildren. And he said he learned new things about me and he hopes it's a bestseller. And another one was, it's one of the reviews, and maybe it was him, but somebody else said, we need this kind of hopeful story in today's world.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
that's powerful and profound. That's what I want this book to accomplish. Hope during this
Hmm.
era of just conflict and confusion and tragedies and traumas, that
Hmm.
people know of true love. So
Yeah. And so what advice would you give after going through that whole process of, back and forth and everything and the hardships of writing? What advice would you give to a writer working on his or her first book?
definitely I learned a lot from this. And I think the most important is to listen and acknowledge what you're interested in, what is resonating. What
Hmm.
do you hear yourself talking about or thinking about or talking to others about? Definitely a journal, just
Hmm.
like I did. Just start writing a page or paragraph, and then that leads to writing more. And everybody says reading, of course, reading helps. I started reading everything I could. I read Joyce Carol Oates and about grief and her husband. But that does help. But most importantly, I think solitude
Mm,
helped me. I needed to be quiet and hear it. And that's why I like writing early in the morning. I don't want to know the news or hear people's voices even. It's like static. I need to hear what I'm feeling and thinking and what is important. And that's very important for a writer, to get in touch with your inspiration and intuitiveness. Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, her father, when she was just early writing in her journal and she would read it to him, and he was a bookseller in London, I believe, of very sophisticated, rare books. So she knew literature, and so did he. He sent her to be with a friend of his in Scotland, where he knew she would have quiet. And he said to her, "You need to hear your voice, Mary." And
mm,
that's so important. We need to hear our voice. And I
mhm,
think Hemingway said, and this is not a direct quote of any of these great writers, he said something to the effect that writing is a lonely safari. It's a
mhm,
hunt, a solitary hunt for the right word, for the right phrase. And think about that. That's not easy. That it's so important to have solitude, but you need to be careful that you don't isolate. So I force myself to get out and I have friends and I'm involved with horses and be involved with other people, because to stay alone, which does feed the creativity for me, I need to balance it with being out and about with people and reading. Something else that helped me early in the early stages. I took a memoir writing workshop at NYU. I'd already graduated from there, but there was a non-matriculating class, 42nd Street, one of their annexes. That helped because that teacher, she was an English teacher at NYU and also taught this class, because she would give us prompts and we would write like for 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and then we would read our prompts. And then the class, people were invited to share and respond, and people responded. There were lawyers in there who took the class to learn how to speak publicly and organize their thoughts and organize their briefs and their what they would say in front of the judge. They
mhm,
responded so well to what I would say. That was just the very beginning stage. So I encourage writers, artists to be with other writers for feedback. Whether you
mhm.
agree with them or not, you never know. The next few days, you think, oh, that person said something that resonates.
Yeah, yeah. Do you see yourself writing more after this or
I have
writing?
some ideas.
Yeah,
Uh,
nice. That's
Yeah,
exciting.
I've always wanted to write fiction, but like starting this, oh my gosh, I don't dare do that. I'm not a fiction. Oh my God. But I know I have some characters I'd like to develop, but I don't know where to begin with that. And then maybe a children's book about animals. I'm realizing how much I was brought up with animals and how I bond with them no matter what walking down the street, people with dogs, they just come up to me right away. And I guess it's
Mm-hmm.
an energy, and I bond with horses, and I have some ideas about animals.
Yeah,
We'll
that's
see.
lovely. Yeah. And just I had a question about grief real
Yeah,
quickly.
sure.
And anyone that's going through grief and just how what would you say to not a person who is grieving, but to the family of someone who's grieving,
Oh,
as
great
far as,
question.
yeah, as far as like, family members are obviously worried about specifically, people that or their loved one that loses someone, whether it be a spouse or something, and doesn't want that person to necessarily be alone, but in the sense it is their grief journey to be had. So what would you, if that makes sense, what would you say
Oh,
to
totally, totally makes
family
sense.
members that are dealing or that have someone that is grieving, like?
You don't want the grieving person to sink into a space where they can't return, and that does happen to some people. Um, Probably what helped me the most was just people being there. Just don't
Yeah.
say anything. It just drove me so to a point of exasperation when people would say, always in a better place. And I just really wanted to say, do you know that? Have you been there? Where is it?
Yeah.
I want to know, describe it. Nobody
Yeah.
knows. And everybody grieves differently. The most profound comfort was when people just were there, showed
Mhm.
up, stood next to me, no matter what I was saying or going through, or just say as little as possible, I think, but be
Mhm.
there. And if the grieving one wants to talk, the gift of listening. Those
Mhm.
were the people who helped me the most. Don't say much. Don't tell the grieving person because the grieving person doesn't want to be told and doesn't know what they want to do. Just
Yeah.
help the grieving person try to figure out what the next step is, and there may not be a next step. And just sit with.
Right.
My
Yeah.
mother came and just sat with me. She sat in my husband's chair and I told her to get the hell out of my husband's chair because you're in such pain. I said, who are
Yeah.
you? But she could have just walked out and said, well, the hell with you. She just said, okay, and moved to another chair because
Yeah.
I was grieving.
Right.
So
Yeah.
just know that the grieving person will say things, do things, forget things, respond the way they've never responded before. And I still do that.
Mhm.
Where did that come from? It's the pain. I think be patient and loving and give unconditional
Unconditional.
love.
Yeah.
That's the
Absolutely.
best. That's all.
Yeah.
Don't make it complicated. Oh, would you like to, sit in the sun for a little bit? Or would you want to walk or go walk for the beach? Don't force anything on the grieving person. They're fragile. They're broken.
Big life decisions don't need to be made right away.
No decisions. Just
Yeah.
give them a nice meal and just keep it really simple.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good advice. Well, what would you think that, or what do you think Adrian would think about you being a writer and this book? What do you think he would say?
He would go like this. That's my girl.
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet.
Oh yeah, he was always my champion. Yep. He would just be really happy. He had a fun little whistle. He would whistle like, oh, that's my girl.
Oh,
He'd
that's
be very happy.
mhm.
And I'm sure on the spiritual level, he knows, and
Mhm.
he's here with me. They're here. A friend is a Catholic nun. I wasn't brought up Catholic, and she loved Adrian. And well, actually, we were brought up, you don't talk to Catholics. That's how open-minded my Presbyterian says. She's
Mhm.
one of my good friends. And she loved Adrian. And when he passed away, I said, well, I pray to him, sister, and I can feel him and I know he's around. He died before his birthday and I see balloons when I need to see them. She said, that's good, but you won't be able to keep him there with you forever. And I didn't ask any questions. I don't know what that means, but it made sense. They're not here forever.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I still talk to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Try it for
Mhm. I see.
protection. Things are
Yeah, or
going well.
or just look for signs, throughout your day.
I do. I do receive, as I say, balloons because he
Mhm.
died the day before his birthday. Just the other day, I was walking on the beach and thinking, I don't know if I can do all this. My painting, I've got some big paintings some large size paintings and this book and the marketing, and I'm not tech savvy with all these tech tasks. And I was just feeling a little bit despondent, and all of a sudden there were a few balloons on the beach
Hmm.
saying happy birthday. And my birthday is in September.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a Bible thumper, but there is a place in the New Testament where it says neither death nor principalities can keep you from real love. And we had real love. So, oh, and the nun said that I said, well, I miss him so much. She said, well, he's there. It's just, he's in the spirit form. It's just this. So I don't have those answers, but I do know that we loved each other very much. And when I need comfort, I have a sense that he comforts me from
Yeah.
wherever his spirit is now. That's
Mhm.
the only thing I can say. Yeah.
Oh gosh. It's such a lovely story. I just think it's so wonderful. It's very, yeah, refreshing and it's nice that true love still exists like that. And I think a lot of people will really like it. And yeah, I think it's wonderful. I'm glad that you published it. I know that it was tough, but I think a lot of readers will resonate, and I think it's wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, I was compelled to tell the story. It wouldn't leave me alone. There were times when,
Like,
no, I'm not doing
fun.
this. And then I would start to hear it. Like, oh,
Yeah.
let me just
Oh
write that
God. Yeah. It's like I need to.
down.
Oh
Thank you
wow.
so much for this,
Yeah,
and
thank
I
you
really
so much.
appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Marcie, for joining me today. Is there anything else that you want to mention today to our audience? I know you mentioned you have a website.
Yes, I have a website and I have an author's page on Amazon. And I wish everybody comfort and love who by reading this story of unconditional love.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for joining me and Marcie. If you wish to purchase her book, you can head to balboapress.com and purchase it there through the online bookstore. You also can purchase it through Amazon and Barnes and Noble. You can even go into your local bookstore and ask for the ISBN number, and they can order it for you there. So that's a great option.
I think it's also on my website. When you open my website, it says you can buy the
Yeah.
book there. So
Okay, yeah, you can buy it on Marcy's website. That's a good option too. Well, thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you next time.